Yep.
We'll have Dan do his favorite part, which is the YouTuber, the crazy YouTuber guy. Hey guys, welcome back to What's a Woolpert.
Hello, welcome back to What's a Woolpert. I'm your host, Dan McCallick, of course, with Ben Blumenscheid. And today we have Judi and Dave. And before we start, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves, tell us where you're at and what you do. Judi, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Judi Craig. I'm the market director for transportation here at Woolpert, and I'm based in the Cincinnati office, home of the Brent Spence Bridge.
Dave?
Dave Holstein. I'm in the Dayton office. In the transportation group, I'm a program director.
Perfect. And I guess a little icebreaker just to mix things up. Judi, what was your first job ever?
I was a page at the public library, which meant I reshelved books.
Okay, that's good. How about you, Dave?
Well, I was a proud member of the Dairy Queen service. I wore the red, yellow, white, and brown checked uniform of a Dairy Queen. And it was,
Okay, then what was your first actual job out of college, Dave?
Oh, okay. If you're not going to count that, then
No, that counts.
we'll
I'm
go
just
with.
curious.
I started immediately out of college with ODOT, so I spent
Okay.
31, a little over 31 years with ODOT before coming to Woolpert.
Okay. How about you, Judi? The first, actual job.
I worked for the Planning Commission in Columbus, actually. So Dave and I were just a few blocks apart on parallel paths for a really long time.
Like I said, what we wanted to talk about was the Brent Spence Bridge project because I looked it up a little bit, and from what I understand, which is just the Google, this is a once in a generation, $3.6 billion project, and I thought I heard it was the largest infrastructure project ever. Is that true?
I don't know about ever, but certainly it's the largest transportation project in the Midwest. That's
Okay.
I can say that with a real certainty, but I doubt ever. No.
What are the drivers mainly behind this overhaul?
So can I give you a little context, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and obviously most of this you could find out if you did a Google search in Wikipedia, but the reality of it is Brent Spence Bridge is part of the I-75 corridor, right? The I-75 corridor runs from Detroit to Miami, Florida. It's one of the biggest freight corridors in the country. And one of the bottlenecks in that is downtown Cincinnati Brent Spence Bridge, right? So the Brent Spence Bridge was built in 1963. It was scheduled to open just a couple of days before John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And it was designed to carry 85,000 vehicles per day. So it had exceeded that. Design life in transportation's, what, Dave, 40 years, right?
Well, we designed most facilities for 20 years facilities, but for a bridge like this, we would shoot for 50 or 100 years.
Right. So that original design projected that in 50 or 100 years it'd carry 85,000 cars. Actually, in reality, it carried that inside of 20 years. And so when it was originally built, it was 3 lanes in each direction and a double-decker truss bridge. So 85,000 cars within the first 20 years. They restriped the bridge and got rid of the safety shoulders. So what that caused the bridge to be deemed functionally obsolete in 1985. So really just 20 years after it opened, right? Functionally obsolete doesn't mean you're going to fall in the river because it's structurally sound, but to carry that volume of traffic, it's actually not safe. So that really began a process that I was involved in early in my career for planning of the entire I-75 corridor. Dave was at ODOT during the time I was at the Planning Commission. So we both have kind of been tracking Brent Spence Bridge on parallel paths for more than 25 years because it really has taken that amount of time to get the funding in place, to get the planning in place, to get the community buy-in, and then also, again, federal funding, state. You got a lot of players involved. And so it's 35 years in the making.
So that's wild. And you're saying this thing has been functionally obsolete for decades. That kind of blows my mind. How common is that across the U.S. with bridges like this?
So the term functionally obsolete, Judi hit it on the head. It doesn't mean it's dangerous. It doesn't mean it's going to fall down. It just means it's not functioning as it was originally intended. So functionally obsolete can mean as simple as the shoulders aren't as wide as it should be, right?
Okay.
And that is the case with Brent Spence. So after they restriped it, the shoulders were gone. But there's also a major problem is it has is even with the extra lane, 4 lanes now, the traffic has grown well beyond what 4 lanes can carry.
Right.
That's really, the major driving force is you just have to drive through the Cincinnati area or look at Google Maps every day and you see there's just a big blob of red right there where the bridge goes across the river. And so it's actually two interstates. It's 71, 75 come together and cross the Ohio River between Ohio and Kentucky right there. And that convergence is the major bottleneck that Judi was talking about.
So, people say, oh my God, 35 years, but it's really complicated, right? Not only is it a huge expense, but as Dave said, two interstates come together. We talk about the Brent Spence Bridge, but the study area actually includes something like 60 structures because it's 6 miles?
Yeah, so our project basically goes from a mile north of the river in Ohio down to almost 275 down Cincinnati. So yeah, it's like a 6 or 7 mile corridor. Absolutely.
Wild. Yeah, so that is a sizable footprint. And you guys are correct. I mean, as somebody that lives nearby, if you're heading towards Cincinnati, crossing the bridge could take, 30 seconds or it could take 40 minutes or something because it is definitely. I think that the website for the Brent, oh my gosh, I can't say that, Brent Spence Bridge said that it gets 700 million, no, billion worth of freight crossing it every year. So I'm assuming that from what I understand, they're breaking it apart into like a local and an express of sorts and reconfiguring it. And I looked at the little renderings. It's a pretty elaborate design. There's a lot going on there. Can you speak to kind of like what the end result would look like and kind of like the outcome of what they're trying to shoot for to alleviate the bottleneck that's there?
Yeah, so it's being designed to accommodate traffic growth for another 20 years beyond today. Right.
Okay.
So there's going to be an increase in the number of lanes, obviously, because existing can't handle what's there today. Plus, we're designing ahead for traffic in the future. Right. And so there's going to be two bridges. The companion bridge is the new bridge. It's also a double-decker bridge, and it will be exclusively reserved for interstate traffic. So all of I-71, all of I-75 will be on the new bridge. Local connections between Ohio and Kentucky will be on the existing bridge, and it will be restriped back to its original 3 lanes in each direction. So we get back the safety shoulders that Judi was talking about that got eliminated out of necessity. And so all the local lanes will be on the existing bridge. All the interstate bridge lanes will be on the new bridge. And it's hard to believe, but we're spending $4 billion, but we're actually only adding 1 lane additional to the interstate. But when you say that, you have to understand that all the traffic that's out there today on the existing bridge that is just going back and forth between Ohio and Kentucky, that's all getting removed and put over on the existing bridge, separated from the interstate bridge. So it's going to be, I think, 5 lanes on the new bridge, 3 lanes on the existing bridge, each direction. Both of them will be double-decker bridges.
Wild.
Well, the project, so you think, oh, wow, big Ohio bridge, double-decker bridge, that's got to be super expensive. The reality is the bridge component of this project is actually one of the smaller pieces of the $3 billion, right? It's making all the connections on the Ohio side and for 4 or 5 miles in the Kentucky side. That is really the preponderance of the cost. At one time they were projecting, pre-inflation, that the river crossing bridge would be $300-400 million. Now it's obviously gone up along with everything else since then. But the reality is it's all the stuff on either end of the bridge on the land that's really driving the price of this project.
Wild. And Judi, you had said early on when we were first talking before we started recording, perspectives between your background and Dave, yours with the Ohio Department of Transportation. You said, Judi, you've been involved in this for a long time. What's it like now that it's coming to fruition?
So I think it is interesting and well documented that there is, in every big project, there's a community involvement component and there's community interest, right? This is a transformative project. It's the second transformative project in downtown Cincinnati on the interstate in my career, and that was first we rebuilt what's called Fort Washington Way, which is the I-71 component of this project, just to the east. In fact, some of the things we did with Fort Washington Way will be replaced in this approach to the Brent Spence Bridge. But again, always going to have a lot of community interest when you're talking about transforming a neighborhood. The Cincinnati approaches to the bridge are very urban, right? So it goes through a very, very densely urban community. There are some neighborhoods, but there's also a lot of business, both office and commercial. So it kind of skirts the outside of downtown between what's called downtown and Queensgate. So you've got a lot of constituents that are very interested in reserving as much developable land as possible as we rebuild the interstate and kind of modernize a corridor that, again, was built in the 1960s. There's just a lot of community interest, and that's something that ODOT and KYTC, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, have to deal with as we go through with this process.
Yeah, and I guess Dave, from the ODOT side, I mean, how much have they been ramping up for this? I know it's been, I think, a couple of years since you've been with ODOT, but being closer to that governmental side of the spectrum, what do you think about this decades-long process to get here?
For a lot of old timers like myself, it's really kind of satisfying, right? That finally, after all these years, what a lot of people have been working on is really going to be a reality. I mean, and we're part of that team that's making it a reality. One fellow in particular at ODOT, a guy named Stefan Spinoza. He's in charge of all the planning and engineering for District 8, which is the Cincinnati district for ODOT. But he's been the project manager for ODOT of this project for more than a decade. And so you can see how important this would be to him. Now, kind of a human interest story. Stefan is now preparing to retire. May 1st is his last day with ODOT. And it's not, I think, a coincidence that he's retiring after the project became a reality, right? There was a lot of people, friends of mine, who picked the retirement date based upon events related to the Brent Spence going forward. Tim Keller was a state bridge engineer. He wanted to see it get under contract before he retired. So it is personal to a lot of people. It really is.
I mean, the scale on something like this, and I think I saw that the initial preliminary design was done in 2012 or something, which as a layperson kind of surprised me. And then Judi, you're saying, no, this has been in the works since, they identified a problem back in the mid 80s. You know
Right.
what I mean? So,
Right.
I was assuming the 12-year scale of 2012 to be, I mean, that's that's over 10 years, but you're
Yeah.
saying, and I don't know. It's one of those things like, how do you even tackle, I guess it's one day at a time, but
Well, it really is, when you say once in a generation, I mean, you think about it, the problem was identified 1985. That's longer than mine and Dave's careers, right? So, but it's all of our careers because it started before we got here and it's going to finish as we're continuing toward the end of our careers, or the end of Stefan's career for sure, right? He spent quite a lot of his time trying to get this built, and it's exciting. I mean, when we've got so much construction going on in the greater Cincinnati area and across the country, really, you can't go anywhere that you're not seeing road crews, construction of buildings, all of those things. I mean, it's awesome. Somebody once told me you can measure the health of the economy by how many tower cranes you see, right? And we're seeing a lot of tower cranes, and this project, of course, will be one of them as well. But we've been here from the beginning to the end, which is really, really an exciting opportunity. Not everybody gets that chance.
It's wild to think, like you say, somebody's entire career could be focused on this one project. And again, talking about timing, according to the website, it will be substantially complete by 2029, I think is what it said. Is substantially complete another term like, what did you say? Functionally obsolete. Yeah.
No, I mean, it pretty much means exactly what it says. It'll be open. People will think it'll be, but there'll still be some stuff to do.
Uh-huh.
But the bridge will be open, the connections will be open, all the ramps will be open. That's, they may have to come into a final surface course of asphalt or, some kind of landscaping, things that kind of at
Right.
the end, but it'll be up and operational and rolling.
Yeah, I mean, a project like this actually it's almost like punch list. If you think about building a house, right, or a remodel where you go through the punch list, you're still going to have punch list items that have to be finished, right? You can move in, you can start driving on it, but there's still going to be things to be done. And sometimes those things take a while, right? I don't know if there's public art in this particular project, but there are in lots of transportation projects. And oftentimes that's one of the last things that gets done, but projects are able to be utilized.
I mean, and I guess since this is a 5-year process, and I think, we all know technology and just, moves so fast. Are they doing anything on that front, like autonomous vehicles, advanced air mobility? Like, I don't know. I mean, is there certain or pavement technologies? Are there things that they're considering in this process since, technology travels so quickly?
So there's nothing explicitly related to autonomous vehicles, right? But ODOT was curious about that, right? And so
Uh-huh.
when you start thinking about we need X number of lanes for 20 years in the future, right? And that's based on the way cars drive today. But what happens when an autonomous vehicle, when each car is now 6 inches from each other driving down the road like a conga line? You don't need as much space, therefore you have more capacity, therefore you don't need as many lanes, right? And so about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we started experimenting at. We started doing simulations to see what effect autonomous connected vehicles would have on how big we would have to design roads today for the future, right? Because the future is going to change. And so it was really interesting, and we won't know for probably 20 years if we're right or not. But it seemed, if I recall the study, that autonomous connected vehicles haphazardly just coming into the system, but not really being fully implemented, right? So the majority of the vehicles don't have it, but a couple cars do. Doesn't really provide any benefit at all. But when you hit that saturation point where they really do, we're talking 20, 30 years potentially in the future, that we can't make design decisions today based on a 20-year traffic horizon, based on something that really isn't going to have a meaningful impact till probably after that. And so, that was just something ODOT did just because we had the very same question, Dan. What impact is these future technologies going to have? And frankly, you don't know, right? I mean, there's some stuff that's evolutionary, some's revolutionary, some's transformational. You pick your word, but so a lot of times you don't see it coming. And so right now, this is really a traditional project in that it's based around moving goods and people, right? But from a contracting model, it is the first time that ODOT has used a contracting model called progressive design build. And so if there's an innovation part of this project, I think that's probably a pretty good example. A lot of projects are you design the project, you put it out for bid, the contractor bids, he builds it, right? So that's design, bid, build. But then there's also the model that is pretty common, pretty popular in Ohio, is just design, build, right? So the owner puts out a 30% set of plans that says, here, all you contractors, use your innovation to get at the rest of the 70%, give us your bid, right? But it's still owner, contractor. Progressive design build blurs those lines. And so the owners, Ohio and Kentucky, are actually sort of mixing it in with the contracting team to move this project forward as fast, as cheap, as innovative, with the least amount of impacts as possible. And so this new contracting vehicle in Ohio, progressive design build, is hopefully going to get this thing built and functionally open by year 2029 at the lowest cost possible.
Cool. So it sounds like they've made some allotments to try to build in technology, but I guess when the rubber hits the road or whatever, you're designing something at that scale, you have to design to what you know, or else you're probably never going to get there.
Right. Yeah, for a long time, I've been engaged in community forums about transportation. And one of the things I've said all along is if we knew then what we know now, we might have done it differently, but we did the best we could with what we knew at the time. And I think that's still where we are. the community, the city of Cincinnati and the city of Covington, which are the cities on each side of a river, are very involved in the project, but also have projects of their own that are kind of ancillary based on the impact of the bridge. So I do know on the Cincinnati side of the river, in particular, there's a strong interest in ensuring that as we rebuild the Cincinnati street network to accommodate the new corridor, Brent Spence Bridge corridor, the city's very focused on making sure that there's multimodal connections on those streets to service the neighborhoods and service all modes of traffic. So there's a lot of things going on kind of in relation.
So there are weekly meetings right now between the owners, the contractors, the consultants working for the contractors, the consultants working for the owners. At the table is the stakeholders that Judy's talking about. City of Cincinnati's there in real time giving feedback to the proposal because no final decision has been made yet on what exactly is getting built. That's all part of the process that's being done right now.
Huh.
So there is input in real time coming from these stakeholders who are going to have to live with this going through their community for the next 100 years or more. So public engagement is huge in this project because it will affect the entire region and not just Cincinnati and Covington. I mean, literally the whole region.
Right. Yeah. So it is, and you want to when you make big changes like this, and when you spend a lot of money, you want to be as progressive as you can, and you do want to try to anticipate all of the interests and the needs of all the stakeholders, and there's a bunch.
I mean, so I guess what other sorts of, this is a big impactful project, once in a generation. Are there any sorts of other bits of interesting, maybe Woolpert's involvement or interesting facts or challenges,
I'd be kind of curious, just as a total outsider, what are some of the key steps that go into this? Is there infrastructure that has to cross the river to do the building? How much of that short term impact? What does that look like? How do you build a new bridge across that while you're trying to maintain all that traffic going through? Do you have to shut it down or reroute, or can you sort of unpack that a little bit?
So Dave's an expert.
Maybe I should explain one of our roles on the project. Okay, and then Ben, that'll kind of lead into the answer to your question. So Woolpert is part of a team that's called the QAM, Quality Assurance Management Team. Okay, and so we're several large firms. Honestly, Woolpert's Transportation is probably one of the smaller of the firms on the team, but we are the owner's rep. And so this is the largest infrastructure project in the Midwest, right? We've beat that horse to death. But ironically, there are 3 people from ODOT and 3 people from Kentucky who are assigned this project, and that's it. And the rest of their staff is this QAM team made up of consultants, of which we are. So when we are at meetings, we are speaking with and for the states of Ohio and Kentucky. Okay, and so we are the capacity that they have as projects as plans come in and need reviewed, or if technical support is needed. The design build team is telling them this. These national river crossing experts are saying this, but we have that same expertise on our team that can advise Ohio and Kentucky that yes, we agree, we don't agree, or whatever, right? And so we really are the owner's rep. A lot of times we talk about an extension of your staff is kind of one of those cliched hackneyed terms that we always put in proposals. In this case, it's an actual fact. We are their staff. We're not an extension of their staff. We are their staff. And so from Woolpert's standpoint, we're in this group and we've divided out the project amongst the other members of our team on the QAM. We are leading the maintenance of traffic. So Ben, that's getting to your question. So I'm the overall lead for the whole project for maintenance of traffic. We have one firm that I have is working the Ohio lead, the Kentucky lead, but I'm the overall lead. All right. We also are the overall lead for all the bridges in Ohio. And we are also the overall lead for all the roadway design in Ohio. But that doesn't mean we're not working on other parts of the project, right? Because when you have a project this big, there are so many submittals coming in so fast that no one firm can do it. And so really it's divide and conquer. right? And so if I have, for me, if I have a large number of maintenance of traffic reviews, I can call in resources from Woolpert or anybody on the team that makes sense to get it done, because you've got to get it done. You cannot be late. Because if you think about it, if you're late, the contractor's late. The contractor's schedule's affected. You delay a $3.6 billion project and it's your fault, it costs real money and big money, right? And so this is one of those you cannot fail. And so you have to have the resources. And Woolpert doesn't have the resources, nor does anybody on our team individually, but collectively, we're pulling all our resources to be the staff for the states. Now, you asked about the maintenance of traffic. That's what we're figuring out right now, right? And so we haven't finalized the options of what the Ohio side is going to look like. Yes, we've had what was that alternative coming out for the last 12. We've been working on for 12 years. It was called IW. That's just the name of it. Part of the process now is the design build team and their consultants are trying to figure out ways to optimize it and make it better. And that's the part of the process we're in right now. But we are planning the maintenance of traffic, which is the orange barrels. We're the orange barrel guys, right? For both alternatives, for the original and plus this new alternative, so that we're ready. That whatever the choice is going forward, we're ready. And so we're going through that process right now. What roads? How many lanes can we maintain? What ramps can stay open or be closed? Where are we going to divert them if we do close them? One of the interesting facts that I think that people are going to be surprised about is I-71. Remember, I-71 comes down, goes right across the bridge. It will be closed for an extended period of time. That interstate will be closed because it's right through the heart of the project. And so we need space to build the new part, but you can't build the new part if the old part's in the way, right? And so Interstate 71 is going to go away for an extended period of time. And with the alternate route of being 471 to 275. Okay, now that introduces potentially a whole new set of problems over there. And so now we're not only looking at our project, but now we're looking regionally about the problems, because people are going to go, if you can't go here, they're going to go somewhere. And so now we're doing computer modeling, the project team is, to try and anticipate where these people are all going to go if this, and this are closed. Where are they going? And then what problems will that create? Okay, and then how are we going to mitigate it? And so we're right in the middle of that right now, Ben.
How far out are you looking at? Like you mentioned regionally, which I think is a really interesting thing to start looking at how it's going to affect neighboring towns, communities. How far out do you look for something like that?
So we're using the travel demand model by Morpsey. So that's the MPO, and that literally is what is that, 8 or 9 county region that includes Cincinnati. And so the model goes out, way out.
Sure.
We're not talking about just the 275. It's on out, the 8 county region. And so every road is in it. And what we're doing is we're running scenarios that says, okay, for example, when 71 is closed, where are they going? Things like that. And you're a driver, right? You're not going to bypass Cincinnati entirely unless it's just absolutely miserable, right? It's just human nature, right? I just screw it. I think I'll just go via Indiana. It's just not going to happen. And so most of the time you're in that 275 circle is really where it's all happening. But remember, if we were in downtown Columbus, there's lots of ways around, right? If you're crossing the Ohio River, there's a finite number of ways across the river. And so that's a really limiting factor for us, right? You get X number of lanes that go across the river, and that's it.
So I think it's interesting too, and I can't remember exactly what the date was, but a couple of years ago we had a fire on the bridge and it shut down the bridge. For how long, Dave? A few months, right? And yeah, so a tractor trailer collision. Fortunately, no one was killed, but there was significant damage done to the decks of the bridge. I think the fire was on the lower deck, and so within that meant the heat was rising to the upper deck as well. But what that did was it gave everybody some insight into where people are going to go, because the bridge literally was shut down for a few months. That doesn't usually happen, right? Fortunately, like I said, they were able to rehab it and reopen it, so it was just a few months. But accidents do happen.
if the bridge catches on fire and you have to close it for 2 months, the public understands, right? This is not our fault. It caught on fire. What do you want us to do? But if you do a construction project that closes the lanes, that causes them to be a half hour late for picking up their kids, there's hell to pay, right? And so that's the part that we're dealing with, right? Because all the delays and all the closures, we are going to be under the scrutiny of the public and catch their ire if it's unbearable, right? And so you get a bit of a break when the public understands it. This is an act of God or something beyond your control. But right now, they're going to look at us and say, "This is your fault if it goes to hell in a handbasket."
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and we don't have much of a choice, right? I mean, it has to happen. But you're right. That perception of, the politicians or the government or whoever's, making our life hard is a lot probably tougher to swallow than, oh my gosh, something outside of our control happened.
Well, I mean, and it's a real balancing act for us because
Yeah.
if we try and keep everything open, then we only give the contractor these tiny little spaces to work in, and it's very the production rates are very low, right? They just kind of creep along through construction because they don't want to mess with anybody, right? But that's least impactful to the public. But it drags the project out like you can't believe. And time is money, and especially in this case.
Right.
And so you
Well,
got
yeah.
this balancing act. Do we want to get in and get out? Or do we want to have the least impact, right? And so it's very much a balance of what you keep open, what you close. Sometimes you have to close it because there's no choice, but a lot of times there are choices. It's like, okay, if we close this is the inconvenience, but this is the benefit we get for doing it. Yes or no?
Yeah, one of the largest line items in the budget is inflation, right? And the cost of construction, it just keeps going up.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, this project was projected to be $1 billion. And now what is it, Dave? 3 billion today? And that's because it's been 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's 35 years in the making. Again, lots of things changed in time, but one of the biggest things that changed was cost.
One of the reasons the project has been around this long is for lack of funding, right? And so for a long time, the plan was, well, we'll toll it. We'll put tolls on it. And it became a very political issue, particularly in the state of Kentucky. They had just built the Louisville bridges to connecting with Indiana, and they were tolled. And Northern Kentucky vowed there shall be no tolls. And so we were in an impasse. We didn't have the money. The only way we could get the money was tolls. And the resistance was such that it wasn't going to happen. With this last transportation bill, that greatly, you can agree with or disagree with it, but it dramatically increased funding to infrastructure. That's where the money that allowed the states redid their programs. I mean, they put all their chips in the middle. So this is not just a big funded project from Washington. There's an element of that. But both Ohio and Kentucky said, this is our chance. If we're ever going to do it, it's now. So the states have put in a ton of money. They got a big grant. It's now or never right now. And so the chips are all in for both states right now on this project.
Is there, we could talk a little bit about the Key Bridge stuff?
Obviously, the tragedy of the Key Bridge, loss of life, catastrophic failure on a bridge, these things don't happen every day, right? People operate in fear sometimes, but there is, and has been since the 1960s, a federal bridge inspection requirement, right? And so all bridges are on a rotation to be inspected for safety. The Key Bridge opened in 1977, right? So you think about how much technology has changed between then and now. I'm not a bridge designer or bridge engineer, but certainly safety has become paramount in all of our transportation projects. So, when you have a project of that size in a navigable waterway, there's always danger, right? I mean, the Ohio River is a navigable waterway. We do have coal barges that go up and down underneath the Brent Spence Bridge and every one of the other bridges in downtown Cincinnati, as well as obviously pleasure craft and other commercial vehicles. So I don't know, Dave, are there going to be some heightened sensitivity to safety as we build the new one?
Judy, I have every confidence there is, but I'm not part of those discussions, so I'm not even going to speculate about what it is and what it isn't. You got the wrong. If you want to talk about orange barrels, I'm your guy, but not, but but understand, everybody's aware of what happened in Maryland, and frankly, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge before it, right? I mean, so these things happen, and so we learn, we evolve. And Judi mentioned the inspection cycle that's federally mandated. Federally, you have to inspect all of your bridges twice a year or every 2 years. Ohio has actually passed a state law, so we inspect all of our bridges every year, and so we over inspect by double what is required by the feds. So we have a very long and proud history of safety with our bridges here in Ohio. Our bridge conditions are some of the best in the country, in fact. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I mean, if you're going to drive somewhere near this bridge, just keep going.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, usually because I know we're getting close to time here, usually we just kind of try to end on like anything upcoming, something that you guys are maybe excited about or working towards in the industry that you'd like to share or kind of end on.
So Dan, here's where we're at. It's like Groundhog's Day, working in the transportation industry in Ohio, and it happens every 4 months. So every 4 months, ODOT comes out with its new list of opportunities for consultants. 60 to 70 projects on the order, and we get to pick 8 to pursue. And so right now we're in the throes of preparing for the May programmatic. There's 3 every year, and as soon as this one is over, we will start the next one in earnest. So it literally is never ending. And that's even a bit of a misnomer because we're actually working ahead and doing teaming arrangements for 2 or 3 programmatics out, right? And so we're actually working ahead probably a year in some cases for the larger projects. But the daily grind of pursuing projects with ODOT, every 4 months you're done, you start the next one, the next one, the next one. So that's life in the transportation group in Ohio.
Yeah, and I'd add on to that. I mean, I think while that's business for us and projects that we have the privilege of working on, the reality of it is it also just speaks to the amount of work that the DOTs and other local jurisdictions are putting out right now, funded by the infrastructure bill, but really in improvement of our entire transportation system. So it's an exciting time to be able to participate in those projects.
Cool. And like you say, it's so important, and people don't even realize it until something unfortunate happens or construction pops up. I mean, it sounds like being in that industry, you guys are just kind of on that grind of constant improvement, constant rearrangement. It's one of the things that, as you guys have talked about the discussion, even though it's been going on for a decade, it seems very agile, very agile. Much more so than one might think. I think for a bridge building project, which I think is kind of interesting. But I'm guessing that's the nature of our world today. So, all right. Judi and Dave, thanks again for sharing your expertise with us. It's interesting to hear what's going on, and it's exciting that we're part of improving not just transportation over the Ohio River, but the entire region. So thanks for your time and effort.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.